right, here we go. On a Wednesday, it has been, I'll tell you what, an absolutely wonderful, wonderful week. Halfway through the month of October. This month has flown by. I feel like this fall has flown by. Every time we sit here this time of the year, I feel like we have all these plans for what goes on in the fall, and we get ready and get excited for the build of the season and the beginning of the season, and then September hits, and it's like that. Boom, it's like gone in a flash. And here we are. Playoffs are starting for soccer and volleyball soon. Football is 2 weeks left in the regular season for high school. College is in the midst of full swing. Playoffs will be starting with them soon. And if you can hardly believe this, we're already a third of the way through the NFL season. So welcome in, everybody. Hold on to your hard hats and take a step back and be with us. This is the Gem City Sports Podcast. We are so glad that you are here. Talking local sports, talking about all the things that you and your family and friends talk about driving home from a game, whether it be your kids that you have, your grandkids that you're going to watch, whether it's an alma mater that you attended that you still watch games at. We love talking high school and local sports just like you do. Welcome into the program. For those of you who are new, you can follow us up there at the links above at Gem City SN on X, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We're on Twitch, wherever you get your podcasts. You could also listen on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Our show, as always, is proudly brought to you by Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, go to the website, www.rebicinvestments.com, or you can call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. We're going to get to football in just a couple of minutes. It's Rob Matz who's going to be joining us for previewing Week 9 and asking the question, who needs to win the game more between Prep and GM on Friday? It literally could be do or die time for the Ramblers. We'll explain that in just a few minutes. But I wanted to start tonight on the high school slate with soccer. Of course, soccer and volleyball, the two sports in the fall, we don't always get to talk much about. We feel bad. The talent is incredible. It's always there, and there's just an immense amount of it around the region. But brackets coming out tomorrow, selection show happening at the end of this week. And I'll tell you what, if you've been out of the loop with soccer so far this year, it has been just an incredible season for so many teams. And with the playoffs being decided, one of the things that I always remember was my favorite time of the year covering in District 10 in the month of October and November was soccer playoffs. It wasn't because of the weather. I freaking hated the weather. It was half the time snowy, rainy, cold, windy. It's never a fun time, but it is arguably the deepest in terms of top to bottom of talent in the bracket out of any sport in this area. Maybe softball, baseball gives it a run, basketball in class 2A, 3A maybe, but it is quite literally the one sport where an 8 could be to 1, a 12 could be to 1, and no one would bat an eye. And so tonight, we wanted to have one of the faces of District 10 join us. He's been the head coach at Fairview for a long time, and they are the only team in District 10, boys or girls, that comes in with an undefeated record, and they just got done beating Northeast last night. This team has not given up a goal since I feel like it last rained back on September 18th when they beat Prep. 16-0. They've only given up 7 goals all year. And this man, it's going to be great to see again. Welcoming back in Sonny Vidakovic, the head coach for Fairview Boys Soccer, in just a second. Once the technical glitches end in just a moment here. The signal's always a fun time. But you know, it's interesting. You take a look at the standings in soccer. We're going to talk to Sonny in just a minute about 2A. 2A is always the bracket that is the most crazy. But I'll tell you what, Region 3 in boys soccer has been, it's been getting better every single year. And this year, no different. You have 4 of the 6 teams that are above the 500 mark. Fairview, Harbor Creek, Prep, you can make the argument that all 3 of them could win the classification, and it wouldn't be surprising, all of them happening in 2A so far this year. So it is going to be a really ridiculous classification to judge, and just basically asking the question of, is it possible that we could have chaos in that classification? So we'll have to see. Playoff brackets coming out really, really soon, but this guy's going to be watching them intently. Joining us from another soccer game, head coach Sonny Vidakovic of Fairview Boys Soccer. He was at his daughter's game tonight. You can't get away, Sonny, but I'm sure you like it that way.
It's been the whole week. It's soccer games. You know, if I don't have a game, then Sheeta has one. You know, so this week 5 days and 5 soccer games.
Well, man, it's good to see you again. I know it's been a while since we last talked, but you're one of the ones that I certainly miss in terms of interviewing and getting a chance to talk to during this time of year. So great to see you're doing well, and the team certainly is doing well. I know that you know how good your program is, but let's just take you back to the beginning of the season. Did you anticipate this kind of a year in terms of your record coming into the playoffs at 16-0-0, and depending on how you play against GM tomorrow, completing an undefeated regular season?
To be honest, no. We have been a successful program for a few years now, and we really don't care about the records, regular season records. We schedule games against teams that are going to challenge us. We will look at, because you have to play a certain amount of region games, and then all of our non-region games are, usually against quality opponents. We went to Pittsburgh, played two AAA teams. We played GM, was a AAA team. We went to Ohio, played a team that, it's got only 2 losses, and we were one of them. We played Du Bois, who's also a AAA team, just to see somebody else, that's different. So we use those games just to get better. And, obviously, we go in each and every one of them to win.
And you have 16 wins in a row. I think for me, the defense has been the most incredible. You've put up a bunch of goals, but you've allowed 7. And if I'm looking at that right, I don't think anybody else has given up less. I want to ask specifically, there are a lot of players on this team that I think you could go through and talk about, but the Chiocos, that's become a household name in Fairview, and not to be misconstrued with Chico's, which is a diner and restaurant that is in the Fairview area. These are Chiocos, Chiocco. Joey and Jackson, I got a chance to cover Jackson, and he's just been lights out ever since he stepped into the field for you guys. But those two have been your driving force this season in what is their senior and their sophomore year. Have you coached a duo to the likes of what they've been able to do this season? I'm just curious to see what their dynamic is and how well they played this year.
No, I haven't, and I don't think a lot of coaches have had that, a privilege to coach 2 players they're like that. But I'm also glad that you mentioned, the was something that we are proud of, and I think that gets lost a little bit is our defensive effort. We got scored only 7 goals, I believe, last 9 games a shutout. And that goes obviously from our goalkeeper Quinn and our great defense, but that sometimes gets lost. And when we talk about the 7 goals that we got scored on, the first 4 were against Pittsburgh teams. So that is something that as program we're very proud of, but then going forward, we got some firepower. With the Chiocos, with Stefan, and some other players that are coming in and just getting better game in and game out.
What has it been like to be able to have the luxury, I'm sure, of being able to put guys in different places? And I'm sure at this point, everybody knows their role, but was there a point in the year that you quickly came to a realization? And we're going to get in the region talk in a second. Your region's quite literally hell. I mean, you know that better than anybody. But
yep.
At what point did you start to get the feeling that this team was even more different than what your previous teams have been? Because you guys have been successful for a while, but this is, I think, a little bit of a different level.
Yeah, I think every year, you go into it like a brand new team, really. We lost 4 seniors last year that were starters and in the back, really. And then we had to move, Danny Lindeberger, who was a midfielder his whole life. We had to put him back in the back, with Sam Sobin and Sam Agnello, just players that haven't played that much, and you come to our games and you watch them, and you would think that they've been 4-year starters. Each year is different, but it's that hunger and will and they just want to succeed. Our summer off season workouts are ridiculous. The time that the Chiocos and Stefan and all of our players put in that people don't see. After practices, they'll stay and they'll do extra session just the boys. So, all of that is obviously evident now with the 16-0 record.
And you've got one more coming up against GM. We'll talk about that in just a second. But playoffs are coming up here, and for those of you, there are a lot of people who are probably watching the show for the first time. We haven't gotten a chance to talk a lot of soccer in the last couple of weeks or so, but 2A playoffs coming up. You don't know how many teams they're going to take. They can take up to 12. They probably should take 12. It's that deep. I know we look at Pennsylvania as from a bird's eye view, it's Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, right, and then everybody else. But would you argue that 2A, specifically on the boys' side from District 10, is the best class that you're going to get in the state of Pennsylvania? It's just amazing to me to see the depth of how good every team is in this division.
I think 2A in District 10 is the strongest, and that, like you look at Harbor Creek and Prep and Fairview, and we go against the likes as GM, who's AAA. We go against the likes as McDowell, who's Quad A. And AA teams are getting on top and winning those kind of games. So when it comes to D10, I believe AA is one of the best classifications when it comes to soccer. Going into Pittsburgh, Quad A schools are always big, right? Because you're talking about, huge Seneca Valley's, huge. But to get out of District 10 in AA is very, very difficult. And then, once you're out, then you're really ready for those state playoffs.
And Sonny, let's talk about what you can expect in the tournament. You guys now for a few years have been able to kind of run 2A. We saw, last year I remember covering you guys. Northeast was the powerhouse in the regular season, and you guys you just came alive when it mattered most, right? And I think that comes with experience. What does it take to get through that tournament? Because we're going to assume they're going to take probably upwards of 12 teams. How is it? How do you get through something like that with a gauntlet? Because a lot of these teams are going to be playing for a third time.
Correct. We're going to see pretty much every team for the third time, and I believe that's where we as coaches and as team come in and really, we preach that all year. We really don't care about the record. It's one game at a time. Our first goal was, okay, let's get a region championship. That's accomplished. We believe with our record and region championship, we're probably going to number one seed, so that's the next step. And to be honest, right now, since AA gets two teams into the state playoffs, our next goal is just to get to the District 10 final. So one game at a time. We know we could possibly finish with an undefeated record, which doesn't mean anything, and first round of playoffs lose, and that's it. So our focus is game at a time. Next goal is D10 final, because that guarantees us state playoff spot, and then we go from there.
I wish there were more like 4 or 5 spots that you could take from 2A for playoffs. That it's like basketball, right? Where I feel like sometimes it's a matter of when I was covering it, you get one game into the playoffs and you're into states. But if only it were like that. Sonny Vidakovic, Fairview boys soccer coach, joining us here on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Why is Erie so talented and rich for soccer? It's the same thing on the girls' side, right? We see all the time that there are plenty of teams, Region 4 or 5, they're always up there at the top. You've been around soccer for a long time, not just with Fairview, but with other teams as well, whether it be clubs, summer soccer teams, other than that. What has made Erie now so dynamic that they are becoming, and I think at this point have become a powerhouse in terms of just soccer at this age and level?
Well, I think it goes back to obviously club sports. We got 2 clubs in Erie now that they get probably around 300 or so players each. So that's quite a lot of players playing soccer and early on. I look at our Fairview program, for example. Our middle school program had 50-something 5th and 6th graders, which is incredible. So obviously a little bit of success with the Fairview program that helped, those numbers go up. But, every school district, the top teams get more and more players that are younger coming playing up throughout the year.
And it's clearly showing. We're seeing just the level of talent that we have on both sides. And the funny thing, I think, too, Sonny, and you and I have talked about this a lot, is a lot of these guys are going to play each other in the playoffs, have played with each other on club teams. So there's a familiarity there, too, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's same with the coaches, Harbor Creek coach, Fort LaBeouf coach, Northeast coach, Prep coach. They all actually coached if not most of the players on the Fairview team, and then Fairview players playing with the Harbor Creek players and so on. So Erie is still a small city, small little town, where everybody knows everybody and they play together. And after so many years, they know tendencies and the weaknesses, and that makes it even tougher.
And it's been cool too from my angle to watch it continue on in the college game. I mean, I know it's boys soccer versus girls soccer, but I've seen basically Erie County Light and Gannon on the women's side with their front four up front. They've been dominating. Obviously, a lot of guys go on to do great things here, Sonny. Take me through what the next couple of weeks looks like for this team. Obviously, you hope to get to the D10 championship and hopefully win it, but then you're in states. What does the next couple of weeks look like for this team? What's it going to take to get through the tournament? And if you get to that point, the state tournament, knowing how good 2A is as a whole?
So the first step is obviously tomorrow. Jerry McLean, we scheduled the game because they're always a quality team. That's a team that's going to actually get us prepared, for the D10 playoffs. It's kind of nice, going into it. We don't have to worry about, region championships already wrapped up, so really it's just getting a quality game in before, really do or die games. It's win or go home. So the boys are ready. I think the disappointment of last year, losing, even though it was a state quarterfinals, still losing on penalty kicks, just the way we did. We had some chances we should have, we could have and should have won the game, but it is something that the boys don't forget. And then that's something that they've been, it's been back of their head the whole summer.
Sonny, can I just say that I'm glad that this game tomorrow, I know it means something, but it doesn't mean that much in the grand scheme of things because I've got betting favorites on both sides. I love you as a coach. I have a lot of people in the Fairview community who I appreciate. But not only am I an alum from GM, but Dan Young, obviously, in that connection with Bex Young, the assistant coach on the Gannon soccer team. I don't know what to do here. I'm just glad, Sonny, that you guys have this region wrapped up and that you say the record doesn't matter because – that'll be a lot of fun, but it is interesting because, like you said, everybody knows everyone so well, and I'm just, I just think it's so fascinating to get to see how the game has grown in this area, and I know you've been such a big part of it, and I think it's set up well for the future, is it not?
Oh, I think so. And like I said, you look at both clubs that are in the Erie, the numbers are just growing. I looked at our Fairview community. When we had our fifth and sixth grade team had over 45 players, which is unheard of. Our seventh and eighth grade team is doing excellent, and we have over 20. So when I started about 11 years ago, we could barely field the fifth and sixth grade team. 1 year we didn't have enough seventh and eighth graders. So seeing the growth is quite special. Seeing the program grow like that and be as successful as it has, it's nice. And then on side note, Dan Young is a very good friend of mine. So it's nice to finish the season on his turf this time, and it's always a good game.
Man, it's always going to be fun. Playoffs coming up in just a few days from now. Sonny, it's great to see you again. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us, man, and just have fun. This is a great time of year, and hopefully the weather holds up too. I know that we've been lucky. You laughed, I saw in this backstage studio when I talked about terrible weather. I loved conference soccer playoffs. I hated the fact that I had to break out the winter coat and snow pants. The first day of postseason, it always snowed like clockwork.
Absolutely. I got my winter boots in my car. It's 2 pair of pants, usually rain pants and snow pants, big jackets, hats, and all that's ready because, it can start and it'd be nice and then all of a sudden snowing. So we're excited that we get to play in it, but we're ready.
No doubt, man. Hey, good talking to you, buddy. Sonny, I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sonny Vidakovic, head coach of the Fairview Tigers, 16-0-0. They might be 17-0 by year end and likely the number 1 seed in Class 2A, which is a gauntlet, by the way. You look at 2A, it's kind of crazy. Region 3, Region 4, you throw in some of Region 2 there. They're stacked. And so it would not be surprising to see any team knock off any team. And especially as Sonny was talking about, you got to get to the District 10 championship game. That seems easy. It's not. It's a gauntlet just to get there, and you like your chances in postseason play if you can at least get to the District 10 championship game, which these teams will be vying for. as we get ready for this weekend and then the next weeks to come. Hey, we're thankful for Fairview for being on the show. Bennett's thankful to be on the show too. Say hi, buddy. Hi. He's our biggest fan tonight on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. We're big fans of Rebich Investments too. They keep financial guidance simple. If you want more info, go to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. Let's bring in the consultant. And by consultant, I mean the man who knows many in all things about high school football, Mr. Rob Matz. And that Josh Allen jersey behind you is looking worse and worse every single week. Rob, I'm getting nervous for your guys. I don't know.
It is what it is. I've suffered through the drought and through Super Bowl losses, you name it. So I'm over it. I was upset, but hey, it is what it is.
I hate to tell you that I predicted this last week, but maybe the bye's a good thing for them. I don't think they're that bad, but man, they need something. Maybe it was the all white jerseys. Maybe that was the curse. They're 4-0 going into that game, and then they wear them, they lose, and now you're starting at 4-2. I don't know.
Maybe Joe Brady needs not to be so cute. And
that's fair.
I mean, a little ridiculous with the end around there on fourth down. Just go.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how getting cute and missing fourth down and short third down conversions get you in the college game. Just ask James Franklin, the Penn State coaching staff. But before we do you have a reaction to that, Rob? Just Franklin getting canned from Penn State. I know you're big into the college and the pro game as well. Just your thoughts from a guy who's been there, done that before in the football sector.
You know, I mean, what a recruiter. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, look at all the decommits now and everything. And I mean, he took over a program that was in tough shape and did an incredible job. But, you know, you had to kind of think he lost a couple recruits there after that last loss right in that time frame. And, you know, you just wonder what was said and what was going on behind the scenes. And, I mean, he's heard it. It's tough. I feel bad for the guy. I saw what Cooper Cousins put out there on Twitter. And I mean, the players loved him. So it's tough. I feel bad for anybody in that situation.
Yeah, and you can see how much he was dedicated to the program. I was asking, in large part because we have a local product in Cooper Cousins who's on that team. And I think it just goes to show, this better than I do, but the coaching carousel, the coaching ranks this time of year, this 2025 is just so volatile. 17 days or whatever it was ago, you're sitting with a chance to be the number one team of the country if you beat Oregon, and now your head coach is fired. And I think to an extent, it's unfortunately at the high school level too, bigger high school level, and obviously the pro level. And it's a tough sport. That's why we love what we do, and we're lucky to do it for as long as we can. So
that's right.
See what happens at Penn State. We'll do those predictions a little bit later on in later versions of the show. Let's talk high school football, Rob. Week 9. We got one more full week left of this puppy before playoffs begin. Week 10 is kind of up in the air. We'll see how many games get played, but it's hard to believe we're already here. And I think, the big question mark coming into this week, Rob, we were wondering, okay, is Region 5 going to be decided? Are we going to be sitting in a situation where some of these games mean more than others? And the regions have not all yet been decided. There is still lots to be played for, but just your musings and initial thoughts as we get ready for week number 9, knowing that it's going to come down to the wire, not just for regions, but potentially for playoffs for some teams, which is what we're going to talk about in just a minute.
Yeah. Where do you want to start at? Do you want to start with the playoffs or where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with the playoffs. And we did this exercise last week with what we thought the brackets looked like heading into week number 8. Now we have a bit more clarity. Starting 3A here. I know that's what we've been talking about with the Erie County teams. And Rob, you and I were kind of, I don't want to say split, but debating, all right, is it Harbor Creek that might get that last slot? Does it go to Conneaut? How do you separate that? I think we can probably agree that it's probably going to be Conneaut, even though both them and Harbor Creek lost. I think Harbor Creek needed to win that game last week to get a 4th win against Fort LaBeouf, although they looked okay. What do you think the math is in 3A? What would it look like if you had to predict it?
Well, I mean, with what Northeast did to Girard, I mean,
yeah,
it kind of puts a stamp on thing because Girard beat Harbor Creek. Yeah, I mean, Conneaut, they're going to finish with 6 wins. It's going to be really hard to they should finish with 6 wins. Let's say. I don't know. I can't really say that. I'm sorry for saying that, but looking at things.
Well, Conneaut does have 6 wins already.
Or I'm sorry. Yes, but the Girard game at the very end is going to loom large. Just to see who's going to be where it's going to all transpire. But I mean, I have Hickory, Sharon, Grove City right now because of their win over Fort LaBeouf, Corey, and then Northeast. And you look at the remaining schedule for Northeast, they're going to probably finish at 8-2, the way things look. And, we talked about it last week, and, I have to say Region Coach of the Year, Chris Krahowski, for what he's done with that program, turned it around. Their schedule has not been crazy hard, but they had that big win week 1 over Grove City, which is huge. And then, the last couple spots, it looks like Girard and Conneaut, and, just to see how that's going to transpire, who's going to get Hickory and who will probably get Sharon. Yeah,
big question for me is going to be who's going to end up playing LaBeouf in the 4-5. I think we can both agree LaBeouf's going to probably be 4. I would make an argument, even though they did not beat Grove City, that they should be 3. I'm not going to get into that. People would get upset with me. It is what it is. But is it still Corey to you, Rob? Because I think, Northeast now makes at least an argument that, okay, we had a big win over Girard. I just think that ultimately head-to-head's probably going to come into play with this, with Corey beating Northeast a couple weeks back.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you have to take that into consideration, and so it's definitely Corey, and they have a chance, right there to finish well. But I mean, they actually, you have to give it to them. I mean, and it looks like it's going to again be Fort LaBeouf and Corey, which, hey, that's a great matchup right there.
Yeah, and I think if you're Northeast, as crazy as this sounds, wouldn't you want to be 6? Because, I mean, I know Absolutely. It was back in week 1, but you almost, and I know it was a lot closer than what the score, but you kind of went out and boat raced Grove City in the first 3 quarters in week 1.
You did. And Grove City, like we said, you got to get Grove City early because they always turn it on. They played Sharon really tough. They have a tough schedule as well. But, I mean, yeah, that for Northeast, that's the best scenario right there. I mean, You went back and I mean, I watched the Northeast Girard game a couple times, and Girard came out, nice return and a big run right off the bat, and Northeast just settled in, and they loaded the box and they played extremely hard and physical, and they just shut things down. I was actually very surprised.
And a very interesting Friday night to come because Fort LaBeouf, they get a win. They clinch the region outright. They'd be 5-0. And you've been harping on this, Rob, that you thought the Bison would probably run the table in the region. They're a Girard win away from doing that. Yellow Jackets, man, they would love a bounce-back game before playoffs because they're looking at probably a Sharon matchup in round number 1 unless things were to take a crazy turn. And the wild thing about it is the Tigers aren't even playing that well by their standards. They have not looked that great offensively in the last couple of games, which I know is hard to imagine with all that they have back there. But there's certainly some concern for Sharon. I don't think of the first round of playoffs, but maybe a little bit of a scare in the semis. And I don't think they would be the favorite against Hickory if and potentially when they play them in the D10 championship. But Corey can clinch a share of the region if they win and Fort LaBeouf loses. Corey's got Harbor Creek this week. It's, again, Harbor Creek always feisty at home, but you never know. But, I want to start game-wise, Rob, with one that's not a region game, but maybe the biggest game on paper of the weekend. And I will just say I'm not going to get into any specifics because I'm no longer a reporter. I don't have those credentials, even though people still tell me things. I'm hearing a lot of really interesting things this week. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to be the one to put it out there or speculate on things, but I'm just hearing a lot of really interesting things from a lot of people that I trust, and we'll see where that goes. But let's go to Cathedral Prep General McLean here, Rob. And the question that I have is who needs this game more? And, it was interesting. I believe it was the Erie Times News had put out earlier today that Cathedral Prep's not even guaranteed to make the 5A sub-regional playoffs. They take the top 4 teams based on a point system from the PIAA. Prep's not the top 4 right now. So they need this game if they want to solidify themselves in a sub-regional playoff game. And, of course, we know GM. I went there. I know Prep and McDowell are the 2 that they're always trying to catch. let's dive into this, Rob. Prep won this game last year. GM was up 2 scores early. How do you see this game potentially playing out on Friday night?
I mean, this is tough. I've looked at it from so many different scenarios. You know, GM 7-1, Prep 3-4. Prep has played a tough schedule. Their losses are to Riverside, St. Francis, who is no joke this year. And people can say what they want to say about McDowell's record, but McDowell's a good team. I mean, They've played a loaded schedule.
They did.
And Benedictine, who is always one of the top teams, you know, on over the border there in Ohio. It's tough to call. You know, Gavin Friedman, you know what he does. Desari Carson. I mean, Prep's only played 7 games and he's at about 1,000 yards right now. Mm-hmm. It's tough. They decidedly have played a tougher schedule, you know, but then you look at GM, 7 games, they've gone over the 42-point mark. They average 45 points a game. They're giving up 16. Prep's at 30, giving up 35. But again, you know, we can talk about the schedule. Matt Oblique, the receiver there, they go, you know, they go through Gavin Easter. It's really tough to call the game because of who Prep's played and what they've played. I mean, you know, we can throw them in another, you know, with another schedule, and they might have a 6-1, 7-1 record.
Sure,
we don't know. But McLean, we've talked about it all the time. I mean, Prep's going to have to really be stout in the secondary and handle things. And McLean, they just throw so many players at you. I mean, when I'm looking at this, you know, what Matt Carroll's done is crazy. 28 touchdowns to 2 interceptions.
Yeah. You know,
Cole Beachley's a good running back. You know, you got Swenson in there, and then Corwin, you know, he can go in the backfield down on the goal line. You know, Kyle McConnell and Kaiser. And then, you know, again, the big problem is the 2 tight end matchups and then how they want to go fast. You know, defensively, Beachley, Squires, Hollier, Sharp, Mitchell, you know, but their tough game of the schedule so far was DuBois week 1, but they dropped it. So I don't know. And then, you know, Prep defensively, you know, they do a nice job. You know, I'm looking at this Camden Reynolds and Tucker Pilatus. You know, Harris has 3 sacks and an INT. I never discount Prep. I will say that. And, you know, I know they've thrown the ball a lot this year, but when it comes down to it, you know, McLean's going to have to stop the run. They're going to
couple things,
I think.
Yeah, I agree. Couple things that are funny to me. GM's in the exact same spot this year as they were last year coming into the Prep game. They lost their opener to a non-District 10 opponent, won 7 straight games, and ended up losing to Prep. It was a 39-32 game. It was a close game. Really tough finish. Jacob Zeitz went out of the game late. Scary injury, ended up coming back. But I'm so fascinated at how this, and let's just for sake of argument call it a rivalry. They don't play every single year. I get that.
It's a rivalry. It is a rivalry. I mean,
I'm glad
we didn't play for a while, but I remember those days, you know, with the jersey switches and it's ferocious. And I'm going to tell you what makes it even more ferocious. And, you know, we talk about this. This is an important game. And I'm going to tell you why it's important. It's really important for GM because then GM needs to set the tone because there's a good possibility that Prep is down in 4A next year.
Right. No, I agree.
And GM's not, you know, and GM, they're not going up. They're going to be in 4A. So, I mean, you want to kind of get that out there that, you know, and GM played with them last year and, you know, and they can. It's just interesting. There's so many fascinating storylines of this game.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with you on the rivalry standpoint. I mean, I knew it. I experienced it. I lived it myself. But the fascinating thing to me, Rob, about this game is the way that I think the teams conduct their on-field strategy is so different. Back when I was in high school, of course, legendary head coach Jim Wells was still kicking it with GM. And it was when you played Prep, when you played McDowell, those 2 teams, it was, can you control the clock, run the football, go on long, extended drives, keep Prep in between the tackles, don't let them get outside. And Prep just had so much talent really on their line of scrimmage that they could just dominate the line of scrimmage. They could move wherever they wanted to, right? They could run the ball outside. They could go power. They could go quick screen, bubble, whatever you wanted to do. and they could move the entirety of the field and score quickly. And this year, I think it's such a different dynamic because if you're Prep, the last thing you want to do is get into a shootout in this game. I think if it's a 39-32 game, GM probably wins this year. I think in tandem because of the tight ends. I think they have more weapons this year than they did last year. And I don't know if Matt Caro is going, with respect to Isaac Zeitz, who was a great quarterback, I don't know if Matt makes the mistakes that maybe Isaac was potentially prone to making last season or forcing throws. For me, really the key in this game is going to be who has the ball more often and how long do they possess the football. I think if Prep can hold this football for 26, 27, 28 of the 48 minutes, I think they probably win the game because they even despite GM's talent, they're going to have a bigger offensive line in Prep. They have, you could make the argument, the best player on the field in Desiree Carson. And if you keep the football and you just pound the rock and Mike Milsher says, all right, we're going to beat you up front, then it's the McDowell strategy against Prep, right? You go in, you play bully ball, and you end up scoring 28 points and win. The second GM gains the advantage is when they can play the ball to the outside. And I really think, for me, Rob, this game comes down to the two tight ends and the fact that they had them both last year, but they weren't as effective as they've been this season. I think that plays a big dynamic in this game. And I'm with you. I think it's a toss-up. I don't know who the heck's going to win it. I just know it's going to be close.
I feel the same way. And it could come down to who has the ball last. It really could. It's like I said, I've tried to play every scenario. And it's tough. It can go a multitude of ways, but who knows? And like you said, and we'll go back to it. It's a rivalry. It's a heated rivalry, and it could really spice up in the next couple of years too. It's great for the area. It's great for the area.
It is.
Yes.
It is. No doubt. Just go to the GM concession stand. They'll have a special on something that shows you what kind of rivalry it is. So I'll leave it at that at Linden Field Friday night. Let's go back to Region 5, Rob. The game I really want to touch on, even though it maybe doesn't have the same luster as it would have had last week with the Northeast win over Girard, is Girard and Fort LeBoeuf at battles in West County. And I just want to get your take on the chances you think Girard has in terms of winning this football game. Girard's been a tough team to read, right? They start the season. We had Mark Brooks on the show. They start 3-0. They had the big win over Sharpsville in week number 1. Tough game to Corey. Then they win 3 straight. They get stomped by Northeast. Your thoughts on how this could play out? Fort LeBoeuf, clearly, I think, the favorite coming into this game, but Girard's been feisty at home. They haven't lost at home this season, so I'm just interested to get your take.
The reason why I've been on the Fort LeBoeuf train, I started it last year, but the reason why I've been on all year long is because of the talent in that junior class, and not only that, the depth. A lot of people don't know they've been playing a couple freshmen in their secondary, starting. I think they were down a couple linemen last week too. They really have continued to chug along when they've been up against the wall. And you look at their wins this year. It was a big win over Meadville week 1. It's always tough. The Northeast. I mean, the game was close in the first half.
Right.
I mean, LeBoeuf really took it to them in the second half. I mean, they got physical and really took it to Northeast. And the Corey game, that's just such a rivalry. It's always coming down. And they had a big lead, and then Corey, clawed their way back in. And then you look at Girard. Girard's had an easier schedule, but they've had some really, they've had a couple solid wins because that Harbor Creek team, it's a solid team.
Yeah,
beating Harbor Creek was a good win, and then to beat Fairview, I mean, in that rivalry game, was huge. And when you look at things, it's the mark lines up in the eye and he'll jump in the spread, and Ryan St. Julian, he had a tough game last week, but Aiden Arnold and Mason Klicky, I mean, they're tough. They really are. And, and then you look on defense with Klicky, mind-blowing stat to me. And I'm like, I would need to go back and watch all their film because it's like, almost like, really? They have Klicky down for 134 tackles. So he's almost at 17 tackles a game. I mean, that is craziness. I mean, it could end the year at 150 tackles.
Right.
And he's tough. But he's going to have to play really big because Skylar Sadowski, when he gets on track, he is an animal, running the ball. Dominic Walters, he doesn't have, great numbers as far as total numbers, but when you combine the running and the passing together, he's at about 1,100 yards for the season and 11, total TDs. And they've got Xavier Bloss back. He was out a couple games. He's their dual threat guy. Michael Vamiro is a really good receiver. Black is solid on both sides of the ball. Yeah. So it's a tough game. I mean, Girard's going to have to go in there, and they're going to have to basically say, hey, we're the more physical team. They're going to have to get some first downs, and they can't make mistakes. I should say at home,
Yeah, I agree. I think LaBeouf is such a fundamentally sound team. They don't beat themselves, and we've seen that this year in the games that they have won, specifically the Meadville game, right, where they were the ones taking advantage of Meadville's mistakes as opposed to the other way around, and even the Corey game too, right, and what you've accurately described as a rivalry. And I think for Girard, the other thing that you'll have to look and consider is looking forward to the playoffs, assuming that you get in, is can you test yourself against a run game that is solid like Fort LaBeouf, knowing you're probably going to be playing Sharon, and despite Ethan Englemore's arm, that's what they're going to do, right? They're not going to necessarily go power all the time, but they're going to use Terry on Arnold, Bishop, Root, and the likes to run some jet sweeps, some outside zones, things of that nature. So it's a good test for the playoffs too for Girard. I agree. I think Fort LaBeouf's probably the favorite. I think they'll probably win the game, but it wouldn't shock me if it's a lot closer than maybe what we're expecting. Heading into Friday night. One more for you, Rob, before we kind of set the scene just for week number 9 as a whole, and that is a game that is for a battle of the region, at least to Sharon Eisenhower's hands, and you and I have been covering Mercyhurst Prep all year. Knights and Jim Penley, one of your favorite coaches, come into Saxon, and they take on the Lakers of Mercyhurst Prep. Just want to get your thoughts on this. We saw last week the Lakers with Vinny Feliciano and of course, the boatload of touchdowns that he scored in the game. How do you assess this one? I think it's clear the Lakers can score more points. I guess I wonder, is Eisenhower, do they have a path to be able to run and chug their way to an upset win on the road? Well,
Jacob Zach is one of the better players in D10. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you look at him, he's a man among boys when he's on the field. And usually he's the best player on the field. If this game was at Eisenhower, at the Pasture Pain, which is a tough place to play,
grass field.
Yeah, I'd say possibly more of a shot. I watched their game against Franklin and I watched their game against Seneca, and they can move the ball. They can do well. And they're another team. They're going to line up in the eye. They want to run the ball. They'll jump in the spread, but they want to run the ball. Jacob Zach has a cannon of an arm.
Yeah.
They'll run option. They'll run power. They'll run counter out of the eye. They'll do a lot of things. The thing is, I feel like they almost have to come in and play perfect at Mercyhurst. And I watched, it was Franklin and then I watched Seneca, and both teams, and Seneca is very well coached, but nobody's putting the type of speed on the field that Vinny Feliciano has.
No.
And that's the thing. And that offensive line, when they get going, it's tough. It's going to be interesting this week to see if Coach Root puts Vinny back at quarterback again, which he didn't do really last week other than towards the end of the game, because he's also explosive there. The speed factor with Mercyhurst is tough, but I saw it a couple years ago, and it was down there 3 years ago, down at the Pasture Pain there in Russell, PA, and Eisenhower just strung together first downs and just played solid defense, and they were real physical. And Jim's son, Logan Penley, he's a really good running back as well. So, but I mean, they're going to have to put forth a monumental effort because, like we talked about schedules, Mercyhurst comparatively has played a tough schedule. When you think Sharon, Oil City, they ran the gauntlet of 3A teams, and they're going to finish up with Fort LaBeouf at the end of the season, which I think is great for them. And you look at, Eisenhower, and they go back with that loss to Seneca. And, they shot themselves in the foot. They had a goal line stand, and then they turned the ball over and gave Seneca, a real short field to score. But again, and that was at their place. So I feel like they're going to just have to play near perfect to knock off Mercier's Prep.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I would agree with you on a lot of things. To me, this game is one of those ones where if Eisenhower's going to stay in it, they'll get the ball first, and before you know it, they've got the ball in the end zone, and there's 2 minutes to go in the first, and then you go trade possessions, and before you know it, Mercier's Prep standing there with Coach Root with a minute to go in the second quarter, and it's 7-7, and you're like, well, where the heck did time go? Right? Because Eisenhower can do that to you, to your point. They can churn out first downs, chew clock, and before you know it, I mean, to an extent, we even saw it with the first possession for Eisenhower, for Iroquois, last week, where they just held the ball for 7 minutes and time just flies, right? They're 12-minute quarters. It's not like you're playing an insane amount of football comparative to pros in college. So it'll be interesting. I think Mercier's Prep probably takes this one. And keep in mind, too, Seneca, if Eisenhower wins, Seneca wins. It's a 3-way tie for the region. Seneca's at Iroquois this weekend. So things can happen. Rest of the region, Hickory can wrap up the region 4 with a win this weekend. Sharon's 3-1. They need a win and a Hickory loss. Talked about Region 5. GM's already won Region 6, and McDowell has already taken care of Region 7 with their 2 wins over Erie and over Cathedral Prep. Region 1, 2, interesting as well. Greenville should probably wrap up Region 2. Farrell's going to take Region 1 unless something crazy happens. So, Rob, one more week to go. Week 9, of course, the last one of regions. What's the one team that you would say, and I'm putting you on the spot here, the one team that you would say keep an eye out for as a potential dark horse going into the playoffs, maybe under the radar team that you think could potentially be a potential spoiler player with how hot they've been the last few weeks and how they could be going into the playoffs?
I'm going to say if they finish up the next 2 weeks with 2 more wins and have confidence and have some momentum building, I'm going to say Northeast because things match up well for them. If they can get Grove City at a neutral site, if they could knock off Grove City, you never know what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't feel they maybe have the horses as far as a Hickory or a Sharon. I mean, we've seen it, and Hickory looks well to be the favorite. But I think they can propel themselves into a really, really nice situation.
It's very interesting, Rob, because and this is going to be something where if we go down this rabbit hole, we're going to be here for another 2 hours. And I don't want to do this, but I have to just make a point. Every year I get caught up into the whole discussion of Erie County versus Mercer County. I know the history. I know Sharon Hickory have ruled the day in 3A, but if Northeast wins their last 2 games and they end up 8-2 on the season, could you make an argument? I'm not saying that you would. I'm not saying that this is logically what D10 will do. They're probably not. Could you make an argument they're ahead of Grove City, or should be? They have the head-to-head win.
No, because they're 2 losses. I mean, or their losses to Corey, their losses to and their loss to LaBeouf. No, I can't. Then you look at the strength of schedule. I just can't. And then I can't. But regardless, I mean, if they can get that matchup, I think honestly that is probably the best matchup to have. Really, yeah. I mean, other than Fort LaBeouf and Corey, because who knows what's going to happen there. But I mean, just to be able to have that matchup against a team that you did beat already this season.
And you beat on the road, I think, is another part, too. I mean, it's going to be neutral site no matter what, but you're talking about the difference of playing at Farrell or Sharon as opposed to playing at Meadville or Mercyhurst if they host or Vets. It's just interesting to me because you're you're Northeast, you're going to probably be 8-2 if you can take care of business this week and next week. And yeah, I mean, LaBeouf wasn't a great loss. Of course, Corey's a good football team, but it's a respectable and a great season. And you mentioned Coach Grahowski, I think, would no doubt earn the Region 5 Coach of the Year nod with what he's been able to do at Northeast. So going to be interesting, Rob. You're going to be on the call of Mercyhurst Prep Eisenhower on Friday, and then we'll see what happens. High school football rapid reaction coming your way on Friday night after the games. I'm really interested to see what the GM Prep game is going to be, Rob. And that, to me, is the one where whoever ends up winning it, I think, is going to be on a skyward trajectory, especially if it's GM on Friday night.
100%. I mean, Prep needs this win without a doubt. GM, this is GM's last game of the season, until the playoffs, but Prep definitely needs this win.
We shall see. Going to be a lot of fun. Rob, I appreciate you coming on, buddy. It's always great to have you. And looking forward to Friday. Looking forward to next week. Playoffs are almost here, man.
Can't wait. All right, you have a good one.
You too, Rob. Good stuff. Rob Matz, our high school football insider. He is a former coach and a championship-winning coach in District 10. Just a incredible, incredible human being, and we're grateful to have him on our air. All right, before we end the show, Nick Artman unable to join us tonight, but did want to go through my Week 7 NFL headline predictions because I feel like we need to put them on paper just in case you think I'm cheating by not having them on the air here tonight. All right, so starting with Thursday night for the NFL, I've been saying for a while I think Pittsburgh is better than they were last year, but there's always that one game, right? Always that one game on the road that they're a favorite that I think that they lose. I think this is this one. So my headline for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they're going to be trapped in the jungle. Road game favorites. They have a meltdown and lose to the lowly Bengals. This to me is a game that they lose 9 times out of 10. They should be 5-1 after tomorrow. Aaron Rodgers should have his day against that defense that still isn't very good, and Trey Hendrickson is banged up. But Cincinnati in a night game will come to play. Division games are difficult. The rest of the North has been 0-9 since Pittsburgh's gone 2-0 in the last 3 weeks. So all I'll say is just the fact that at some point somebody is bound to win a game of some kind in the North, and I'm just worried it's going to be Cincinnati on Thursday. So there you go. My Friday headline for the Steelers is that they will lose to the lowly Bengals. For the Buffalo Bills, tough one after their loss to Atlanta, 4-2. They're on a bye, and my headline is bye-bye East. Bills are going to officially lose the division lead while on a bye. Patriots have a cupcake game this week, and I think Buffalo is going to be forced to make a significant upgrade ahead of the Chiefs game in a couple of weeks from now. This is not a roster that leaves you smiling at this moment. Their defense can't really stop anything. The run defense is horrendous. The pass defense is getting more DPIs than they are pass breakups and interceptions, and Josh Allen is having to be Superman, but the last 2 weeks he hasn't been. He's been outplayed by Drake May and Michael Penix in back-to-back weeks. And when you look at the division and what New England's been able to do and the easy schedule, I think the Patriots have the easiest schedule in the league for the rest of the season. I'm concerned. Bills fans, leave a comment in the chat. Are you concerned? Because I certainly would be with the way they played the last 2 weeks, and the defense can't stop a runny nose. So I think Buffalo's in some trouble. They're going to be behind the division by a half a game after this week, and it's going to only get worse if they don't make a big move. Then for the Cleveland Browns, I think that Kevin Stefanski could be on the hot seat really, really soon. And my quote for them this week, my headline is, if only. I think Cleveland's going to start to realize that they have a Kevin Stefanski problem when the defense is elite as they normally are, but the offense can't score points again in what, in my opinion, will be another loss this Sunday to the Miami Dolphins. This is the game to me where I think the rubber really meets the road in terms of Cleveland's offense just showing up as a shell of what it was with former MVP or current MVP favorite Baker Mayfield. They can't score. The defense is great, but I think with Tua coming in there, the Dolphins aren't a great team either. They've really struggled this season, as has Cleveland. I think this is going to be the week where Kevin Stefanski is really highlighted as either bad play caller or just choosing the wrong personnel because Cleveland can't score points. I think Cleveland's going to lose this game again, even though the Dolphins also come in at 1-5. And at that point, you're looking at a situation where how long is he the head coach of the Browns? Maybe he'll be the head coach at Penn State. Who knows? I had a prediction for the Nittany Lions head coaching saga as well, but I'll go ahead and wait for that one until Nick Artman comes back, because I think he'll certainly appreciate it. All right, that's it for our show tonight. As always, we appreciate you coming on, stopping by. All the Fairview fans in attendance, thanks for being with us tonight. It was great talking with Sonny Vidakovic ahead of the postseason, and as always, Rob Matz. A lot of cool high school football info. It's going to be a fun week 9. If you're going out to the games, make sure to let us know where you're going to be. Send a picture, drop a like, and comment. Give us a follow. We love talking sports just like you do at Gem City SN right up there. So follow us on all of our social media platforms and on our YouTube. Let us know where you're going to be on Friday. Drop a like in the comments. Drop a comment, drop a like on this video, and of course, make sure to share with all your friends, both in this area and around the world. This is the Gem City Sports Podcast. We'll see you back here on Friday for high school football rapid reaction right around 10 p.m. Till the time, everybody, stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. We love all of you. Thanks again for being a part of our show.